of payment for 300,000 doses of Sputnik V vaccines.
Okay.
Well, the details are that I wish to formally accept your termination of our agreement dated the 9th of March 2021 for the supply of Sputnik V vaccine as per your letter number, and it codes that letter number dated the 14th of July 2021. By this letter, I also wish to formally request for the refund of the remaining amount for the non-supplied doses, which should be the total amount paid to your office minus the amount due for the 20,000 doses you already supplied, in line with your earlier email dated the 25th of July 2021, in which it was affirmed that on the 13th of April 2021, funds were transferred into your accounts as 50% advance for the initial batch of 300,000 doses. And this request for refund is in line with clause 8.2 of the agreement, which states that any termination of this agreement, which shall by notice in writing to the other party, shall not affect any rights, remedies, obligations, or liabilities of the parties that have accrued up to the date of termination, end quote. And it says it would be very much appreciated if the amount is transferred back into the sending bank account as per the earlier SWIFT advice dated on the 9th of April 2021. You may contact to give details of who to contact, the head of legal affairs, and provides the details. And this is signed by the health minister himself, Kweku Ernest Manu.
Very interesting details there. So, Fred, the health minister does not state exactly how much he's expecting from Sheikh Al Maktoum, except that he directs him to do some arithmetic there.
Indeed. So there's no specific amount for which the Sheikh has been asked to refund, except that you'd have to calculate how much he supplied and the worth of that from what the total agreement was to arrive at the amount to be refunded.
Thank you very much. That's head of our health expert, Smith. I will probe this further, which is the latest in this controversial issue. We'll return to it shortly, but there are growing calls for the minister, Kweku Ernest, to resign or be removed by the president. Martin Pedbu is a private legal practitioner. Listen to him.
So the argument I'm making is that even without this payment that has first come out, the contract that he signed means that payment was to be made soon after the 20,000 vaccines were delivered. So on what basis could the minister go to parliament to say that nothing is being paid? Is Al Maktoum Father Christmas? Is Al Maktoum Father Christmas that he'll give you vaccines, 20,000, and not receive payment? So you see that this thing that he hasn't paid, that's why I believe we have to press the issue of perjury very hard, because Ernest is not living, and so we have to make the law bite. And in this direction, I'm thinking that I want citizens to join me so that we will present a joint petition to Parliament so that he'll be tried for the perjury in Parliament, okay? Because under the Constitution, if somebody obstructs justice in Parliament, he has to face the law. We don't want to go into our ordinary law courts because that may raise some issues.
So that is private legal practitioner Martin Pedwu there. He's taking his calls further from calling on the minister to resign to now calling on the general public to help him petition Parliament so he'll be tried for perjury. Now, the latest group to add their voice to calls on the minister to resign is Occupy Ghana. Kweku Asante is my colleague. He joins me in the studio with a copy of their statement. Kweku, they have expressed shock at the revelations made by the committee and also the testimony of the health minister. Tell us more.
Right. So in their statement, they say that they are struck that although payment were made under the transaction, the minister said he did not know about it as at when he testified before Parliament. Contrary to this claim, the health minister was copied in the letter from the 31st March 2021 letter from the acting controller and accountant general to the Bank of Ghana requesting the BOG to make the advance payment to Al Maktoum from the health ministry's accounts. That letter also referred to a 25th March 2021 letter from the Ministry of Finance, obviously authorizing the payment and which must have been copied to the health minister. So they say they are surprised that the minister will feign ignorance about the payments that were made.
But beyond that, they are also calling on, beyond they calling on the minister to resign, they are also asking for a widening of the scope of the probe to include other government officials. Exactly what are they saying?
Right. So like others have also said, they are saying that they do not believe that it's only the health minister that is involved in this. And to quote from their statement, while calling for this resignation of the health minister, we also believe that Ghanaians ought to be told which other officials were involved in processing and paying the monies without demanding and seeing the requisite approvals. Those officials ought to be similarly sanctioned. Also, Ghanaians should be told when we expect to receive a full refund of the outstanding amount from the recipient.
And that position, Kweku, by Occupy Ghana is actually supported by procurement analyst Kobnata Bedu. He spoke on the AM show, asking also for the scope of the probe to be widened so that other government officials who participated in the payment will be held accountable.
Technical people behind them who know their job, who should be advising them on the bureaucracy and how to handle it. Where are those people? Those people should be responsible. Actually, they should be whipped in this, not the ministers. The ministers will take ultimate responsibility. But there were technical people, and these are the people who are not doing Ghana any good. If you are pulling out of a contract, once termination triggers, there are actions that follow with termination. Part of it is recovering all assets from the other part. Our money is part of the assets, and we should be able to recover it. But you see, it depends on how the contract was structured. And I have seen a number of government contracts with third parties, which are very weak.
Let's go into the phone lines now. We're joined by the co-chairman of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, Ernest Manu. Grateful for your time here on Top Story. Also on the other line is the advisor to the Coalition of NGOs in Health, and Mr. Benaku's PhD is also on medical sociology. Gentlemen, I'm grateful for your time. Let me start with you, Mr. Senanu. You have said that the calls, you actually agree with calls for the scope of the probe to be widened, but with the latest move by the finance minister, does it change anything for you? By the health minister, I beg your pardon.
No, it wouldn't, because substantively, the question is, in the absence of an approved contract from the AGs, in the absence of the parliamentary approval, in the absence of the 50% that ought to have been on site before things are released, how did this money get paid? And so some further investigation as to the officials in the finance ministry, the processes followed, the paper trail on how they got to the point of making the payment is critical to understanding whether these kind of breaches can continue in spite of the fact that they had not followed laid down procedure.
But the committee in Parliament that probed this, got correspondence from the Finance Ministry, from the Bank of Ghana. If this were an issue, they would have raised it in their reports, because the only recommendation they make to the Finance Ministry is to take steps to retrieve the funds, and that is all.
It is one of the reasons why we think that the committee has not finished its work. They don't make a recommendation with regard to the minister, their colleague himself, and they do not point out the people who were part of the process who ought to have said that something is going wrong and not proceeded to have made the payment. And so it would be good to find out who were part of the paper trail and the processes within the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Finance as well. Otherwise, we run the risk of this happening again, even though the absence of the necessary approvals, whether from PPA, whether from Parliament, and so on and so forth, had not been, as it were, received.
But Mr. Senanu, we have heard from some of the members of the committee. They have maintained that that the committee was a fact-finding committee. They are not. It is not within their purview to recommend sanctions, for instance, and all the other things that you are demanding. Theirs was to find out exactly what happened, and they did just that.
There was no reference to sanctions. We are just saying there's no comment on the role of their colleague. There's no comment on the other persons who were involved, no recommendations on further investigation. I mean, Parliament does as itself have ethics, and so one is wondering whether a comment about whether there was not a conflict at some point, where ethical procedures were followed, whether what is required. I mean,
But the committee
there
did
is a
say,
clear gap in the recommendations.
but the committee did say they put the testimony of Mr. Manu to proof. They said, for instance, the excuse about being in an emergency situation cannot hold because he could have still been to Parliament and used the certificate of urgency to take approval from the House. They spoke to the various issues that were raised before the committee and actually did say that the minister was wrong on all those fronts. And so when you're asking for comment on the minister, exactly what are you talking about?
No, it's not about comment on the minister. What the commentary is if you've gone through and you find that there are material breaches of procedure, what does the House do when its own members breach procedure? That's the question. It's not so much the fact. And so if there is a subcommittee of Parliament where you found to have breached procedure, where the facts adduced show that, what do they recommend? Are they saying that Parliament does not have any processes that take on board these facts? Shouldn't the recommendations have included, therefore, A must take a further look at it, or these aspects of the House's procedures must be brought to bear on the person involved? Shouldn't the facts also refer to the fact that there are persons who should have known that without parliamentary approval for international agreements, without PPA approval, X and Y must happen, and therefore there is some law or some other aspect of our governance system that should be brought to bear? I think that there are other things that ought to be taken into consideration before we say this case is closed.
Hold the line for me. I'll return to you again to find out the bit about whether or not the health minister, you get the indication he will be resigning, considering that he's already initiated moves to retrieve the funds. But Mr. Benakwe is on the line with me. You have been following this development. As somebody, in this health space, what do you make of all the developments, of all the things that has been recorded in the last few days, and the latest being the health minister taking steps to retrieve the funds?
Yeah, thank you, and good evening, Ghana, and to your viewers and listeners.
Mr. Benakwe, I need you to speak up for me, please.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, the line is better now.
Okay, I'm greeting everybody in Ghana and through your platform. The issues are so clear. When I was the national chairman for the Ghana Coalition on NGO and Health, I made a very strong point on some of the processes, even though we were in emergency situation. But our laws allow us to still follow the administrative and legal processes without breaching them. I still stand by those statements I made to the Ghanaian media and other international platforms that due processes were not followed. Advantages were taken because we were in crisis. But as a country with deepening democracy, we should not resurrect some of those things. So in my remarks, I think that it was not proper for some of those unhealthy processes to have been initiated, executed, and now we find ourselves in this situation. It's not a good thing for Ghana. I have always confidently and professionally said that the Ministry of Health, Ghana Health Service, is an enviable institution in Africa, and we ought to be progressive, not to be retarded. And so I think that wrongs has been made and the punitive measure must be applied rather than just moving around here and there trying to protect other people who have constantly and practically violated our laws with impunity.
And the punitive measure in this case will be what for you?
The president have the prerogative to do that. I do not have the power. No constitutional provision gives me power. I can always recommend to the president. And that is what I have just done. Wrong has been made. There are a lot of administrative processes that need to be activated, and the president have the power to do that.
Mr. Benako, I want to thank you for your time. Ernest Manu is still with me on the line. The minister has initiated steps to retrieve the funds. Does it give you the indication that he will leave that office soon?
No, it doesn't. But I think that it probably would have been the honorable thing to do within the context of all the issues that have come up. But it's a good step he's taking, and let's see how things roll out as we proceed.
As civil society, beyond making the calls, how far are you willing to take this?
Well, I mean, I think that as we have said, we expect that the minister will do the honorable thing. Beyond that, we think that there are questions to be answered also in terms of how this money was paid eventually and whether we can have that resolved. So there's more work to be done, and we'll keep asking the questions until we get all the answers.
And that is Ernest Manu. He is co-chairman of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. And of course, we know that a lot has happened in Parliament as well, following the reports being delivered, being laid in the House after it was adopted by Parliament. The decision was taken by the Minority Chief Whip. He actually moved a motion to censure the minister. He joins us on the line. Muntaka Mubarak, Alhaji Muntaka Mubarak, I'm grateful for your time here on Top Story. Following the latest move by the Health Minister Ernest Manu to retrieve the monies which the committee had recommended, will this change your decision to actually get him censured?
Well, good evening to you and your listeners. It's not a joke. I was just making fun of Ghanaians. I mean,
how is that? The committee recommended exactly this.
I did not making mockery of all of us. I mean, everybody, with the greatest of respect, even the common trader in Makwala or Kedetia market, will tell you that when they want to buy things abroad, they will rather raise LC, letters of credit, so that when the person pays, so the person is assured that his or her money is held, upon delivery, takes the money. Now we have a whole government system, goes ahead to pay money when they've not received the produce. And now they are telling you that the minister has written a letter telling a private individual to return the money. Is it not making mockery of all of us? In fact, this strengthens our belief that the minister is deliberately acting. You see, that day if you listen to my contribution to the report on the floor, I said very clearly that, look, the Minister of Health, one, he's a very senior member of Parliament. The member has been Deputy Minister. He's a chartered accountant. He has been the Vice Chair of our Public Accounts Committee and later became the Chair for 4 years, where they have surcharged public agency heads and individuals from government institutions for failing to adhere to procurement practices, surcharge them to refund money, in some instances recommended for them to be prosecuted. So I have said without doubt that the minister knew everything that he was doing. He is exactly knowledgeable about everything that he's doing. I'm sorry to say, and I've told him, on the floor, as a minister, I am not attacking your character. I'm attacking what you have done. I bet you there's deliberateness. They were more interested in what they were going to get, probably, than trying to save all of us. Because, you see, there was this other thing. If you heard my comment on the floor with regards to this report, I said, look, the committee, if you look at the proceedings of the committee, it was telecast live, and the report of the committee, I said there were still a lot of things that were left out. Because, for example, the 20,000 Sputnik V vaccines, when was it received? Where was it stored? Where was it administered? Where is it as we even speak? We didn't find an answer to that. Remember that in Kenya, they are having this same kind of problem because a vaccine that I'm told that was supposed to be vaccine was later found to be like water. And then the argument came that, it wasn't stored very well, so that the protein in it dissolved and what have you. These 20,000 vaccines that they are claiming, remember also the Sputnik V comes in pairs, meaning it is 10,000 with each pair, giving you the 20,000. Where is it? When was it received? Who received it? Where was it stored? Where has it been, administered? Where has it been administered? This is not known.
And so you think that the committee didn't do a good job?
Every public official will tell you. Minister of Health came in that, they didn't have an idea the money was paid. That's an absolute lie. Minister of Finance will never start a process of making payment until you, the agencies, tell them to make the payment. If they are claiming that so far as his knowledge was concerned, he wasn't aware it was paid, then that opens us up more for further investigation. Who authorized Minister of Finance to make the payment? Why did Minister of Finance not follow through to ensure that all the documentations were right? Why did Bank of Ghana move ahead to transfer the money when we could have used LC? These were leaving so many questions unanswered.
And so, Alhaji Mutaka, you think that your colleagues did not do a good job on this?
Writing that they should refund the money is like making mockery of Ghanaians.
You think that your colleagues did not do a good job on this probe?
I said it calm with that number on the floor of the House. As I have respect for him, but he's betrayed the oath that he swore to occupy that office.
Another aspect of the committee's work,
continue to be the minister.
Another aspect of the committee's work, which some civil society groups and ordinary Ghanaians have raised, is the issue of the recommendations. In the face of all the breaches they established with parliamentary approval, PPA, the AG's advice, and all of those issues, there was no recommendation, for instance, for prosecution.
Yes,
was that within the purview of the committee?
What we said, both myself and the majority, if you listen to our contribution, alluded to the fact that there was more to be done, because that was why I had to move a motion to amend the committee's report to include the dismissal of the minister. That was how I have to do that, because we realized that they concentrated more on raising the issues than after they have established beyond reasonable doubt, because the terms of reference was very clear. Who was he involved? Who was he dealing with? Was he dealing with a private person or government? It was established that he was dealing with a private person. 2, was he? Did he breach? Was it an international agreement that should have come to Parliament? Yes. Did he come to Parliament? No. Has he breached the Procurement Act? Yes. Almost all the terms of reference were broken, but yet they did not make very strong recommendations. But understandable, because believe me, they spend more time fighting and trying to put out the report than the time they spent in going through the proceedings. They had a lot of challenges with the chairman who say the ranking, the vice chair will come with this argument, we agreed on this, you are taking this, you are trying to add this. They spend a lot of the time fighting. Even that day, believe me, they never wanted to get this report on the floor until we rebelled and said that no government business was moving until that report was presented, and we have to virtually go and get them to sign.
Parliament has
a
risen.
lot of challenges among themselves.
Parliament has risen, and will you follow through with this motion of censure when the House resumes?
You heard the minority leader clearly. Nothing short. We will follow through to the very end. In fact, now what they have done have given us opportunity to even amend the committee's report further, to add a lot of the other things that we believe should have been there. Now that they have done this by refusing to allow us to take the decision and moving it to October probably, that gives us opportunity to come up with further amendments to, in my view, to be able to enhance the recommendation and state clearly punishment if this government does not remove the minister or the minister doesn't resign.
Thank you very much. That's the Minority Chief Whip Muntaka Mubarak joining us there on this controversial issue. And just before I go on top story, when you go to Twitter right now, the trending on number 1 is the hashtag Ernest Manu must go. And so it tells you how Ghanaians are following this and very much interested. And the campaign for his removal or resignation is still growing. That's it for top story, brought to you by Gassem, the Nation Builder, and Vodafone. Together we can. News Night comes up shortly after this break.
Let me explain in here. I'm a mistake where I use cement for all your projects. That's why Gassem, with 50 years experience, was to develop various greater. What's in your various jobs? What was super rapid 32.5 hours? Oh no, you're suitable for your dream house. At your screening or Daduchi, Nazi or plastering.